Hello, authors! I hope you have been finding purple words in your life stories since we last spoke. When we left off in my story, I had learned that my cries for help were not going to be answered most of the time. I knew that even if I remained silent, I would receive the same result, the blame. Once you understand that no matter what you do, you are going to get blamed, it changes you. Some people decide to behave badly to create as much hurt as possible due to the injustice of their mistreatments. I completely understand that rage. I sat in a tree thinking about it for 5 hours. I'm sure there are other responses I am unfamiliar with as well. The choice I made was if you are going to hate me for lying or telling the truth, I am going to tell the truth and make you uncomfortable too. No matter what smut can be brought against truth, it will not withstand scrutiny. I will be treated badly either way, so I chose self-worth in my integrity over revenge for my mistreatments. This choice has taken many different forms as I have grown and changed red words to purple. As a child who was expected to be seen and not heard, speaking out was not something I couldn't do in actuality, but I could do so in my actions. Every person's actions should speak louder than their words, especially when red words are not to be trusted, yet lay hidden everywhere. Today's story is about the first times I witnessed abuses without bruises that I myself will never have to experience personally. When I was 6 years old, I got to put my choice into practice. My greater families were very different between my father and mother's families. My dad was number 6 of 11 children, and I had 23 first cousins. Because of my aunt's and uncle's childhood abuse from my grandpa, there is a very close-knit feeling to family ties that transcends blood ties. If you feel we are family to you, you are family to us. In comparison, Mum was an only child, one of 2 on both my grandparents' sides of the family. World War II had genuinely traumatised their generation, so my sister, brother and I were the only known in our generation at the time. That older generation were very involved in our lives. We were the only grandkids for some, so they tried to abway us children with everything they knew in life. My 2 lady cousins were actually lovers, and not blood-related. Because of social standards of propriety, they were not allowed to be a couple publicly. Even as a child, I could understand that they were a couple, but the family refused to acknowledge it. I saw the hurt in their eyes every single time my family excluded them from recognition as more than just friends. I also saw the love in their glances when they thought no one would witness to shame them for it. My family would do things like dismiss their votes on things because they were not a married couple. I never made their eyes look hurt in my actions towards them. I loved them dearly and admired them both greatly. When I would witness these slights to their validity as humans, I would push the issue with my elders. I made sure to do so as was appropriate and expected of a child. The question was not out of turn, in the form where the responses would highlight the abuse. I changed a few of those elders' minds over the years too, but it did not change that they were bigots. My mum's side of the family were racist and bigots, but I did not understand what those things were until later in my life. I just knew that how they were acting was abusive in nature. Because we all lived so far from each other, when we were all in the same state, we would gather at one of the family members' homes. They would reserve the best tables for a formal dinner out at a new place in their area every time. It was fun for me as a kid being seen and not heard, especially at those fancy restaurants. Sit up straight, no elbows on the table, no fidgeting. Order something nice, not a burger. Don't swing your feet, use the right silverware, etc. I was an excellent performing monkey until my sister would find a way to make me responsively lash out at her. Until that happened, though, I got to see all sorts of different people and hear all sorts of different things. I enjoyed that part very much, because people were all so different. You would never walk away without learning something new. At one of our family events visiting downstate, I was excited to see all the cousins, but most of all was my married-in cousin from Argentina. She was the most beautiful person. She was loyal to and loved my cousin to a fault. My cousin was born with disabilities, making any woman who chose to marry him a willing lifetime caretaker. She was poised, kind, grateful, humble, sassy, gorgeous, etc. She tried to teach me how to salsa dance. I absolutely admired her to the nines. At this family gathering, all the cousins had arrived before my grandparents and us did, so they were all there waiting for us. We had enough time for pleasantries, then we had to go to make our reservation. Once we returned to the house for tea and desserts, everyone in the family began chattering about the old days, politics, business, medical concerns, etc. Everyone would just chime in as the conversation flowed, making it a very good learning experience for someone paying attention like me. I had never noticed before I broke my arm that every time my cousin from Argentina tried to add to the conversation, one of the other cousins would cut her off or overspeak her. As the evening progressed, the other family members began treating her like hired help, ordering her to get their drinks and sandwiches ready. It was not a request, it was a command, as if they saw someone not family, but hired, but it was worse than the waiters at those fancy restaurants. I looked at my grandparents' faces, which would tighten, displeased at each offence, but they never spoke. My mum has the perfect quintessential everything is fine face, with a sweet, pleasant smile that still made her eyes glitter blue. But even she showed furrowing of the brows. Dad did not come with us on this trip. He never liked most of Mum's family on their home turf. They were very judgmental about him being a working man, so he gracefully bowed out on most events like this. I realise now that it was because they were bigots and racist too. Mum and Dad did not teach us to see other ethnicities as something to be treated differently, so I was completely unaware of how I could have been offending others who were not white. In my confusion, I watched my cousin's face get angry at something my two lady cousins had said as she responded something under her breath in Spanish about them being lovers. I understood then that the shaming was of a similar nature as my two cousins, but apparently they were the worse offence compared to my Argentine cousin. The two of them were often treated disrespectfully by the family themselves. Why would they ever treat someone else this way? This is when I realised childish gotchas were not something people outgrow without efforts to intentionally leave them behind. It was eeny, meeny, miny, mo, but the person doing the count knew who they were going to land on. The perceived weakest person in the circle for ease of playing without losing. A child's eyes see things as they are, before they are told how they are supposed to see them often. Children have not learned what to be silent about yet, unless special care has been taken to groom the child early to the environment's preferences. This grooming can be red words too, which is how they have been shared through generations. Once I realised that the abuse was to exclude and devalue my Argentine cousin, I stood up and started to help clear the dishes from the deserts, then brought them to the kitchen to see if she wanted help with the service. Her eyes got wet, and she smiled the most beautiful smile as she cupped my face to kiss me, saying yes. She was letting them have it in Spanish with low, sarcastic whispers. I sniggered as she worked and I helped, both of us enjoying our secret eeny, meeny, miny, mo game where they were it. I know what it is like to be hated for being fat. I know what it is like being hated for being a woman. I know what it is like to be hated for refusing to sink to others' levels, but I will never in my living experience know what it is like to be of another nationality or colour. I cannot speak to those abuses beyond my awareness. I can stand as a witness to the abuses of them in my life, and that is all I can do. Live a life where they are seen in all their unique beauty as an individual, without bias from me and those things I can never share with them. That is respect. Acknowledging that we will never know every person's lived abuses, but we can avoid antagonising them by changing our actions when we become aware of them. Being humane is no harder a choice than being a bigot, but being a bigot has built-in red words that let you cheat in life, negating requirements of integrity. Still the same amount of human interaction, you are just meaner because you don't like yourself, and it makes you feel like there is at least one person out there who will always be lesser than you. I would like to say these realizations came in those earlier years, but they took a lifetime to accumulate. I have not even begun to understand the depths of systemic racism, colonization, the whitewashing of history to exclude minority achievements that our nations would not exist without their contributions, without compensation. Racism is abuse without bruising, but it is also abuse with bruising. There is no racial ideology that is humane. Humans are not divided into slave classes by nature. They are done so by laws, traditions, ideologies, faiths and rulers, all using red words. Humanity has a natural community-building instinct. We are tribal, but we are also aware and make our choices of action. To have communal pride is part of the human experience, but there is no logical reason to base that pride in the ruin of others. That is not conducive to a well-functioning society. There is no reason beyond invented red words. Shame is a tool of a society. Shame has been weaponized to cause distress to people for being people. These are not the intention behind using a good tool. You do not carve stone with a fine wood chisel. All you get is a broken tool and a damaged face of stone. Neither result is productive, if you are someone who is concerned with profiting. To be cooperative, we have to be accepting of other people, experiencing things we will never understand. We cannot shame how a person is born, but we can shame how they are groomed. So authors, have you been a victim of bigotry? Have you witnessed bigotry? What do you do when you see it? I try to learn what I don't know from people who do, and put those red words in edit. I have already told you all that I have much more to learn, because this is a red word problem for centuries in the making. I am certain there are apologies and atonement due to people I love out there that I am entirely ignorant of, but I do not want to be ignorant of. I want to honour them and respect them. Keep sharing those stories, authors. The more people who become aware of these abuses, the less they will be allowed to continue without repercussions. Start today to make the world a little bit better than it was when you got here. Smile at a stranger before you choose if they deserve to be smiled at. Change one small habit at every purple word, authors. Until the next story, keep editing.